It's 2 minutes past 10 o'clock this fantastic Friday morning. This is the fabulous Friday edition of the Law FM Morning Show. You're live on the station for knowledge and entertainment, the country's premier law radio station, Law FM 103.9. Let's talk about the aviation sector. And yes, many persons have been complaining about the cost of flying these days. And that's responsible, or rather some factors are responsible for that. Several factors, especially international travel. And you must have seen the story in the news where the Senate, that was on Wednesday, encouraged the federal government, President Buhari precisely, to speak to the Central Bank of Nigeria governor to release trapped funds meant for foreign airlines in the country. Now that's the focus today. It was sometime 2 months ago that the International Air Transport Association said that the amount of foreign airlines funds trapped in Nigeria at the time stood at $743.7 million. Has that changed? We'll get to find out in a moment. Now, they revealed in a letter addressed to Adi Sirika, the Nigeria's Minister of Aviation, that was the case, and that letter was signed by the area manager West and Central Africa, Dr. Samson Fatokun, and he said the sum rose from $62 million. That's $662 million in January to $743.7 million later, 2 months ago. So 2 months ago, this is May, April, March. So in January was $662 million, and as at March, or it rose by the time it was March to $743.7 million. All right, that is one. Hold that and just wait on that. In any case, 1 month later, the National Association of Nigeria Travel Agency said that the federal government, through the Central Bank of Nigeria, had commenced the payment of the foreign airlines trapped funds in the country, albeit gradually. NANTA, as they are called, that's the National Association of Nigeria Travel Agency, told journalists in Lagos 1 month ago that some foreign airlines, which hitherto blocked their low inventories against the travel agent, have started opening them up for sale. The president of NANTA, Susan Akporiaye, disclosed this to journalists sometime last month in January. In Lagos. Though she could not be specific on the actual amounts released so far to the over 25 foreign airlines affected by the crisis, she said the government was paying the funds in trickles. That's that. Now, just a few days ago, like I mentioned, the federal government, the National Assembly, asked the federal government, through Mr. President, to order the Central Bank of Nigeria governor to release those funds. And that is what we need to understand this morning. Why is there a problem with the release of such funds? Why are they trapped in the first place? What's the controversy around this? And what do you need to know, as regards this? Because you might feel like it's so complex, it's not directly going to affect you, but these things have a way of affecting you. All right, and that's the focus on the discourse this morning on the Law FM Morning Show. Joining us to talk about that is the President, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association of Nigeria, Dr. Alex Nwuba. Very good morning to you, Dr. Alex, and thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on the program. Yeah,
appreciate that. So, as it stands, we hear it is $717.4 million currently trapped in Nigeria, and they belong to foreign airlines. And you're a major player in this sector. What exactly, in basic terms, as simple as possible, how can you explain to Nigerians what the problem is here? What are these trap funds? How did we get to this point?
Well, thank you. First of all, we started with the number 743 recently, and now the recent number 717. So we're talking about maybe a payment thereabout of $30 million, which would be about 5% of what's outstanding. So let me, first of all, you notice that the word is foreign airlines.
Yeah.
But we have domestic airlines that fly internationally. They also need dollars to pay for spare parts, for crew training, for aircraft leasing, and everything else. So why they don't exist in those numbers is that we've pretty much thrown the domestic airlines to what the government even promotes as the secondary airline. So they are free to go to Malam under the palm tree and buy dollars in the hundreds of millions of dollars at a much higher rate than foreign airlines to pay for those services. And that will definitely affect the domestic airfares. So when you see your fares rising from Lagos to Benin, it's because the Nigerian carriers are not being treated right, and so they have to source dollars at the black market. The foreign airlines cannot source dollars at the black market because they are restricted from doing so by regulation. For one reason, if we don't have dollars to pay them, the natural thing would be to say, well, why don't they go out and sell their tickets in dollars? We restrict that. We say tickets cannot be sold in dollars, and for good reason. They must be sold in naira. When they sell these tickets in naira, deposit the funds in their banks and tell them to transfer it out, the central bank comes back and says, well, we don't have any dollars. And that's the situation we find ourselves. And so the numbers keep growing from 100 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7, and maybe by the time we're done having this conversation, it will be $800 million. Coincidentally, the same amount of money the president is trying to raise.
I see what you did there.
trying to raise for something other than paying. It's very interesting also because if you look at one of the airlines affected, Emirates Airlines, Emirates is pretty much pulled out, and we as Nigerians say, well, we don't really need them. They're very expensive. They can go. It's good enough. We'll find a way to go to Dubai. And of course, Air Peace was going to Dubai. And as soon as they said they were leaving, they told Air Peace, you cannot come to Dubai. And what has happened consequently also is that because they have left, their service providers that are Nigerians, engineers that service the airplanes when they're in Nigeria, fuel suppliers that supply them food, caterers that offer them food, are all affected, and all of them have pretty much many of these engineers have lost their jobs. The service providers from abroad that have come in to serve them have also left the country. So the effect is not just to the specific airline, but to everything related to the operation of that. So the bottom line is we say we don't have the money to pay for these funds that are due to these countries, because the agreement we have with these airlines and these countries is you sell in naira, we'll provide you the dollars, and we're not doing that, and it's affecting them. Since these airlines cannot get money from the central bank, they obviously have to figure out how to keep operating into Nigeria if they choose to operate. So what they've done is they've said, okay, we're not going to sell Nigerians the cheaper tickets, let's sell them the higher tickets, so that we're sure that when the exchange rate moves, which is what it's done already from 551 to 640 officially for airlines, when it moves, we'll be a lot more for the fact that we're not honoring our obligations, and that's what it comes down to. We promised to do something and we didn't.
So what you're saying is what's responsible for the high rates of this flight is this exchange rate situation.
Absolutely. We're paying higher for fares because we're not paying the money that's supposed to be paid to these foreign airlines. Again, I emphasize the domestic airlines don't enjoy that privilege, and so one has to wonder why we give preference to those that are outside to supporting the domestic carriers, which can grow and become very competitive. And you have to also take that in the context of certain things happening in the marketplace. We have something called the African Continental Free Trade Area, where we as Africans trade with one another. Currently, inter-African trade is less than 17%, and the number is to grow that significantly, because there was a time when Nigeria was very, very, very prosperous. People came from the Congo, from Ghana, from Gambia. They came, they stayed on Broad Street, went to our markets, bought goods that we ourselves imported. Very much the same thing that's happening in Dubai. Dubai doesn't produce a lot of the stuff we go there to buy. People bring them because they think it's a great market. And so in Nigeria, we had that kind of situation where all of these people were coming. And now we have a result where it's easier for them not to even come because the cost of travel is very expensive. even for Nigeria. Look, if the airfares affects everything, it affects your food, it affects what you buy in the stores, because the airlines are paying a lot more you're paying a lot more to make those trips, and those numbers have to be added to the cost of the product. So it's affecting the entire economy.
Interesting. Yeah, so we'll do for a very short break, right? When we get back from this break, we'll delve into this matter even deeper, and then take your calls and contributions as well here on the Law FM Morning Show. So do stay tuned and don't stray a breath.
Let the waves take you to the sound of the law on Law FM 103.9.
Hello guys, my name is Dele Momodu and you are listening to Law FM 103.9 for knowledge and entertainment. Your only law radio station.
The passion to be creative, innovative, to climb higher and take the lead is what drives us on the station that inspires. This is Law FM 103.9 for knowledge and entertainment.
I will implore you, in addition to your course of study, whether you want to migrate, whether ASU on strike, acquire one or two skills. Short skills that will always be relevant. Please, you never can know where you will need such a skill. I am Engineer Olaomi Gaspar, and you're listening to Law FM 103.9.
14 minutes past the hour. This is the Law FM Morning Show. We're on this segment called the Discourse, and the focus today on the Discourse is the huge amount of money. I was going to mention the money, and I remember what Dr. Alex just mentioned about the fact that that's very close to what we're trying to collect from the World Bank. and that's just ringing in my head. So yeah, 714, right? $1 million. So let me not get you depressed. I was going to convert that to Naira, but let me not get you depressed. But that is the amount of money currently trapped in Nigeria, and those funds do not belong to Nigeria, right? They belong to foreign airlines who have sold tickets but cannot access these funds, and that's what Dr. Alex is talking to us about today. Just so you know, who's Dr. Alex Nwuba? He's the president, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association of Nigeria. So that's to tell you that this is a major player in this sector, and it's explained a few things. But let's talk even deeper. How you've tried to explain, how we got to this point, right? The continuous actions that we've taken, those steps that we've taken that got us to this point where from 100 and it keeps rising. But in all of those months that we did this, was there nothing the central bank could have? I recall last year when the Emirates wrote that they were going to pull out. Yeah, few months later, or was it weeks, the central bank, said, all right, we're going to do this in order to ensure that everyone keeps playing, and they can access these funds and business can continue. Then nothing really that the central bank can do differently to ensure that this sector, can flow freely and Nigerians can pay less to fly.
Well, let me do what you refuse to do, which is to acknowledge that today we're talking about 530 billion naira in dollar exchange at the current rate, with whatever rate it's, we use all kinds of rates. It's interesting because on one hand the government says the black market is illegal, and then they say it's maybe an option for some of these airlines. So is it illegal or an option? That's one area to cover. What we have done is beyond aviation, there's been a lot of pain caused by the central bank. None of us have escaped I don't even bother to go to ATMs today. I don't know whether they have any cash to dispense or not. I pretty much just go to one of these POS operators, and they've been more moderate now. They exchange 10,000 naira for 200 naira, and the ATM fees probably 75 naira if you went to a different location. So I think we as a country and as citizens have continued to suffer the lack of responsible monetary policies of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Again, I say it's not just the money owed to the foreign carriers that are based on the official rate, of course, which creates room for arbitrage, meaning that you can buy at the official rate and sell at the black market rate, and that becomes a business of its own. But that the domestic airline industry is not being supported and giving the option for that rate. So I was speaking about the African Continental Free Trade Area. So today, the idea is we're moving to a world where Africans trade with each other with ease. We also have something called the single air transport market, and that means that today we have exclusive markets, the Nigerian aviation market, guided by certain rules, and in order to do business with other markets within Africa, we enter into bilateral agreements, such as if I come to your country once, you can come to mine once. If I come to yours, etc. But under the single air transport market, all of Africa becomes one market. There are no restrictions caused by bilateral, so you can go anywhere you want. And because we haven't gotten our airline industry together or put together the kind of policies required to create a robust airline industry, we become disadvantaged in that single African market, both for trade and for air transportation. So we haven't done that. So the issue is something that will obviously come up in this discussion, why we don't have a national carrier to do that, or why we haven't empowered domestic carriers to do that. And we cannot remember that foreign airlines include Ethiopian Airlines, which is a competitor that wants to become a national carrier. Foreign carriers include Kenya Airways in South Africa, where it's not just British Airways and KLM, etc. So we need the right policies, both from the aviation ministry, and we also need proper monetary policies from the central bank to have the right kind of economy to be competitive in the global marketplace. I also sit on something called the Avia Committee, which is a government committee to look at how we can improve exports. There are many products in the world today, including yam, that Nigeria is the #1 producer in the world. You understand? We produce things that we cannot transport. It is the lack of proper monetary policy, as well as the wrong policies from the aviation ministry and the sector, that are impacting our ability to be competitive, especially as we look to turn to a world without oil.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Alex. I mean, you've spoken as to the respect to the challenge in the industry. You've also talked about the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which is, I mean, an innovation to boost commerce, trade, and investment within the African community. And in fact, like I know, Nigeria is now a signatory to that agreement. Other countries within Africa. A question I want to ask is two questions, basically. The first one is, why is this issue? Why is it not affecting local airlines? Why is it not the foreign airlines? So help our listeners to understand.
Right.
Because we have local airlines as well in Nigeria. Why is this not affecting local? Why is it just foreign airlines? And then the AFCFTA that you spoke about. The second question is, there's a bilateral service agreement between Nigeria and, in fact, other countries, which Nigeria is a signatory to. I also know that there are other international agreements that Nigeria is also a signatory to that affects aviation. Now, the the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, is that not a conflict?
Well,
how would Nigeria, like you are a major stakeholder in the industry, how would Nigeria fulfill its obligation in honoring the obligation it has to the international agreement, and it now has a new obligation which we have talked about under the AFCFTA?
Correct.
So these two questions.
Let me start by saying that why it is not affecting the domestic airlines, as I said earlier, is simply because the domestic airlines don't enjoy the privileges foreign airlines enjoy, which is access to lower cost dollars. So we are paying premium. We're going to the black market. We're subject to all kinds of extraneous market conditions to support our domestic airline industry.
So break this down a little bit. What are the conditions in the black market, for instance?
Well, we know the foreign airlines enjoy an exchange rate now about 550 to 600 varying, while domestic airlines may access that under conditions which the central bank doesn't have the funds for. So they are not restricted. They can go and pay 740. So they're paying at the black market. So they're paying more for spare parts. They're paying more for crew training. They're paying more for equipment, airplanes, etc. to gain access to that. Look, AP signed a deal for multi-billion-dollar acquisition of aircraft. Where is he going to get those dollars from? You know, we have to ask those kinds of questions. If a foreign airline competing with them, even across the street in Ghana, were building that kind of capacity in Nigeria, they will then be advantaged over and above a domestic airline like Air Peace. Moving on to your second question, the bilateral air service agreement is an agreement between countries, as I described earlier, that allows us to deal with each other. For example, UK allows 2 carriers, which we don't have any going to the UK because they block it, and they have British Airways and Virgin coming to Nigeria. The problem again is we don't make policies that benefit our own domestic market.
Are you talking about reciprocity now?
Reciprocity. So what happens is that when the UK wants to come to Nigeria, they send their ambassador, their foreign minister, to have dinner with our foreign minister and aviation minister. They have a nice chat and we approve for them to come. When we want to go, they say to Air Peace, go sort your problem in the UK, and then they block it because I said the UK then blocks it because they want to continue to give the advantage to the domestic carrier. The worst is not the UK. Even in Africa, we have that problem. All of our airlines have for many years tried to enter the Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, and we can't. We've tried and tried. We push. It doesn't happen.
Can you break it down? What are the reasons?
The reason being that Air Peace is going to the foreign ministry and the aviation ministry, and they're getting ignored. And our foreign ministry and the aviation ministry is not making it happen. At the same time, Cote d'Ivoire hold on, let me finish that statement. Cote d'Ivoire, their own airline comes to Nigeria, they come to Lagos, they come to Abuja multiple times a day unrestricted. The right policy would have been to say, if you won't let us come under the agreement we have, then we won't let you come. Then you get greater impact. We did that in the UAE and we saw the market open. In the case of the UAE, Emirates came out of Dubai, wonderful airport. You can shop from morning till night, sleep and continue shopping. And Air Peace was told to go to Sharjah. Sharjah is like ShopRite. You don't have much option. So, and then you need a dog ride into town. And the Air Peace kept fighting to go to Dubai. It was the pressure and the actions we took to tell Emirates, if you won't let him go to Dubai, we won't let you come to Lagos, or we'll restrict the number of flights. They were flying more than 14, 15 times a week into Nigeria, 21 times a week, and we couldn't even go to Dubai. When we put pressure on them, Air Peace was then able to go to Dubai. That's the kind of governance required in this industry to make things work right. We must seek first our own interest in desiring to maintain the bilateral. Let me continue with what you asked. Right. But we have those agreements bilateral where we're moving to a new regime of open skies, the single air transport market, and it's supposed to break down all the barriers. It is that breaking down of the barriers that is delaying the process because everybody's holding on to their goodies. They're refusing to open up the market to allow free movement. Under SATM, you don't need to fly from one designated international airport in one country to another. Ghana would love to enjoy ninth freedom with Nigeria, which is the ability to fly from Accra to every city, Akure, Osun, Benin, everywhere. Why? Because they have strategically chosen to create a hub in their country that gives everybody fifth freedom. So you can come from everywhere to Accra, and then from Accra you can go to any city in Lagos, circumventing Lagos International, Abuja International, Port Harcourt International, Calabar International. We have to understand the industry we're playing in and play right for our own domestic market.
All right. Okay. There's still a lot to cover as regards this, right? And I know that there's a lot more that the Senate also mentioned, when they sought to pass a resolution calling on the central bank to release that the current funds are being trapped. But as we continue the conversation, you can be part of the conversation, of course. In just a few minutes, we'll come to you, but note 0703 227 7338 is the number to call, or 0909 555 1039. You can also tweet at lawfm_radio, and we're on Instagram at lawfm radio. We're streaming live on Facebook. You can go there, drop a comment there as well. If you have questions for Dr. Alex Nwuba, you can also drop your questions right there. All right, so aside calling on the central bank to release this $717 million, right, the Senate also urged the central bank to allocate $25 million to local airlines, more like airlines operating in Nigeria, at its fortnightly dollar auction. Would this fix that problem you talk about, and the lack of privilege given to local airlines?
I think that anything that drops in the bucket is good. If we make enough drops, we'll have a big bucket full of water. So that's a good call from the Senate, and the kind of things we expect from our representatives and our elected representative, essentially. So that's a good bucket. But we need to be more strategic in terms of what do we want to do to make our industry competitive. Look, as we move to a world where where we need to talk about how things get from the farm to the table, we have to understand who is going to transport it. KLM, Ethiopian, South African Airways, or Nigeria Air. And we must move to a regime of Nigeria Air. While it's opposed by everybody, including me, is the structure where we say something is Nigeria Air and it's majorly owned by a foreign entity. We haven't achieved anything. We've defeated that. So we need to, that 25 million allocation is a good start, but we need to move the numbers quite up significantly. Look, there are lots more airlines coming out of Nigeria. We will have to build our structure. Nigeria will be great when Nigeria is a key player in international markets, not a subsidiary player. So we need the right monetary policies, we need the right legislative direction, and we need the right leadership from the president through the Ministry of Aviation.
All right, but Dr. Alex, I would want to ask you a very frank question. Some people have criticized the aviation industry as being dollarized. What I mean by that is that virtually everything in the aviation industry, except maybe the taxi driver, the driver hailing system, and maybe the restaurant, virtually everything is dollar. And this is Nigeria. Why do I sometimes have to pay in dollars? Is that not a dent on patriotism? Is that not an action against the CBN provision that says that all your transactions should be in Naira? Yes, you have said that you pay your ticket in Naira, and then when you want to convert the the airlines want to convert it to dollars, the money is trapped. What I'm saying is you buy your parts, you pay your pilots, you pay the people who work in dollars. Why is this so? Well,
as of today, the world operates as a dollar world.
But this is Nigeria.
And there is obviously the BRICS coming alongside to create a alternative to the dollar, Russian ruble maybe, etc. But the fact remains that we don't produce any of the things we consume in aviation in dollars. And that goes back to my discussion about policy. If the government made the right policies, Nigeria would be like Brazil making airplanes that we would be buying in Naira and using those airplanes to reduce our demand for dollars. If we had the maintenance facilities locally, which they've been talking about and put on the roadmap for decades, all of those things, then we would localize the maintenance. If NCAT, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Training Institute, had the right equipment for simulator to train pilots, to train cabin crew, to do all of those things, those services will be bought in Naira. So the issue goes back to the issue of policy. Do the kind of people we put in the position of power to make policy focus on our priorities? Look, it's not the citizen, it's not the airline. What's his name in Anambra, the transport Innocent could have made the fire trucks we bought for billions, So it is the problem of policymakers, the policy that they created, the kind of economy that becomes dollar dependent.
So you are putting the blame, the box now, at the table of the government.
Absolutely.
So in your own view, let's begin to look at solutions.
Right.
What are the solutions, likely solution to, this issue of trapped funds?
Yes.
This issue of dollarization of our Naira, dollarization of the Nigerian economy, especially in the aviation industry?
Well, you see, when we talk about solutions, we have to be factual about the fact that there must be some short-term, some medium, and some long-term
Let's
solutions.
begin to look at them.
So, question number one, we cannot manufacture airplanes overnight, but we can enter into partnerships like China has done to domesticate the manufacture of aircraft in partnership with foreign partners. So, maybe in the long term, we can look at that. I mean, just yesterday or the day before yesterday, we moved the Minister of Aviation from aviation to aviation and aerospace.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have very lofty ambitions, but they say the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. So what are these first steps? We must domesticate the maintenance of aircraft to Nigeria by whatever means.
Sorry, please. I want to ask, is it that we don't have any place in Nigeria where our aircraft is being maybe maintained or repaired locally? We don't have any hangar that does that.
We do. The 7-star hangar, they have some capacity. They've been doing work for Dana Air, which has brought their numbers down because they can do all the heavy checks for Dana Air. We have aero maintenance, aero contractors, the oldest airline in Nigeria. They do a different type. They do the 737 and Embraer. So we have some capability. But what we need to do is scale that capability so we shut out the complete demand for taking offshore. It doesn't mean we will not source the parts from abroad. Everybody in the world sources parts from manufacturers and offshore equipment OEM producers. Those are people licensed by producers to do that. That's also a capability we can bring in. Let me share one good example for you. The Islamic Republic of Iran is banned from buying spare parts. They cannot buy airplanes, they cannot buy spares, they can't even buy the seats when they tear on the aircraft. We can buy, but we don't buy. You get on an airplane, the seats is torn, the arm is broken, but the People's Republic of Iran cannot. So what has that forced them to do? They have domesticated the repair of all of those facilities in their hangar. They have one of the largest aircraft hangars in the world.
Just like
so sometimes adversity,
the mother of invention.
Absolutely, but we don't need to put ourselves in the position of necessity before we start to think right. And unfortunately, the economy is not primarily driven by the private sector. When it is, it's always in a monopolistic sense rather than a free market competitive environment. And so we don't see that. So what we need to do is policy. We need leadership. We need direction. Well, the leaders that say Nigeria is driven primarily from the public sector. We need public sector operators and thinkers that begin to solve our problems, short-term, medium-term, long-term. Maintenance is one, training is one. We don't need to send pilots abroad to train when we can buy the aircraft simulator, which is a model of the airplane that can be used for training. It seems like the real thing, but it isn't the real thing.
Sorry, do you think this is a problem of the federal government? Who sends pilots abroad for training? Is it not the airline that does the
environment? The airlines do that because the environment has not been created to localize that.
Oh, I see that.
If the airlines can't get dollars in the first place, where do they get the dollars to invest in these assets in the long term? Of course, you have a carrier that Airpeace is scaling on a very large scale, so it is going to pay huge costs for those facilities and that type of equipment. So it behooves them to start thinking right and saying, set aside the government. Like, I'm an advocate of saying, let's get rid of government and face the reality. So they'll be forced by the realities and the economics of their business to find a solution by bringing that equipment in and ensuring that they have the facilities to maintain their aircraft. So again, adversity will be the mother of invention, but we need to move above that. Why do we have a country like the UAE thinking always ahead? Today they established the Center for the Registration of Crypto Coins within their domestic economy. They're looking at how they can use blockchain technology. We seem to always be thinking about how to take Naira out of circulation so a few people can suffer and there can be a few consequences. We need to move the process of governance beyond that level.
All right, 0703-227-7338 and 0909-555-1039 is the number to call. The time to call and be part of the conversation is right now. We're talking about these trapped phones. 717 million, and it's in dollars. Of these trapped phones belonging to foreign airlines in Nigeria. They cannot access that money, and the Senate is saying, "Oh, Central Bank, please release these funds." Let's take your calls. Hello there. Good morning.
The great people in the Law FM.
We greet you.
The educative and exciting radio program. God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm one of your special callers there. I'm Isaac. Archbishop Dr. Isaac Tolajadekola
Nice.
from Madam Okrodu.
Good.
From Madam Okrodu, sir.
Thank you so much for calling. Join the conversation.
Yeah, I've been listening to all the discussions here on Matawale issue, on the confinement of the highest, what do you call it, confinement in Nigeria.
Of national honors, yes.
Honor,
Yeah.
yes, and so many other things like that, including the trap
funds, yes.
$700 million. So, well, all said and done. You see, the problem is this. On the Matawale issue, let me just take it from there. I think, like the man said the other time, that how many have you heard about concerning this and concerning that, at the end of it all, nothing. So I believe that justice should be done. Are you getting me now? And anyone that is found guilty, either heads or whatever, or current whatever, they should be, you understand now, they should be dealt with accordingly. So on that one. Then on the trap something, I think the government should do everything possible to make sure that the airlines, what is, due to them should be returned or be refunded back to them. So that's on that one. And then on the, what they call it, I think, which one, I mentioned something the other time.
The conferment of national honors.
I think that one is normal something when a new president is coming in and device. So definitely, so that one is a welcome development. But all I need to say is just like all hands should be on deck. You see, our democracy is experiencing a new dimension every day. And then there is need for us to unite together as one. So let's just, God have his way. After the inauguration, I believe that Nigeria will be fine. Yeah, everything will be well with Nigeria. I know we shall be a beneficiary to it. So that's my take.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you too. Amen. Thank you. Appreciate it. Dr. Alex, this is the segment we call Take the Mic, all right? And this is the moment where the listener gets to grab the mic and comment on top stories in the news, including the discourse, which is there. So don't be alarmed by the nature of comments you'd hear going forward. Well, Dr. Alex Nwuba is still very much in the studio. We'll continue the conversation with him, but this is a Take the Mic segment where you would be you're allowed to join the conversation and get your thoughts in on this topic, and indeed other stories in the news that we've discussed on the newspaper review segment, which is the news stand. It's a Law FM morning show. We're live on Law FM 103.9. You can also drop your comments via Facebook, where we're streaming live, facebook.com/Law FM 1039, or call the numbers 0703 227 7338 or 0909 555 1039. Would love to hear from you, Dr. Alex Nwuba, president of the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association of Nigeria, is our guest today on the discourse, and we're talking about the $717.4 million trapped airline funds. That's the focus on the discourse. But this is Take the Mic segment where we do not put off the mic. We let you speak, about several issues in the news. Yeah. So, Dr. Alex, we know that this, I recall having this conversation with you sometime last year when, we spoke about the Nigerian national carrier, right? And also we spoke about the Emirates pulling out of the system, or at least threatening at the time that they were going to pull out. Will this trapped funds, first, how much has this discouraged investors? How much has this discouraged even current players in the sector? Now, how much will this do in discouraging them even further from flying Nigeria, from operating, or doing business with Nigeria?
Well, Nigeria is considered a very lucrative market. Nigerians are known to be global travelers. They say if you find yourself in a country and you don't see any Nigerians, run. So that has some relevance to air travel. Emirates just reported its results, and they made a whopping $3 billion profit without considering people say without considering the Nigerian market. But the fact remains that when you look at the books properly, any set of books, whatever is owed by Nigeria is still showed there as accounts receivable, so the Nigerian numbers do impact it. So one cannot say that because the fact that they left Nigeria and had such profit, Nigeria didn't figure. Nigeria figures, Nigeria continues to figure. That's what encourages people to hold on, because ultimately Nigeria has a sovereign responsibility to meet its debt obligations. We're not going to run away from it. It's just going to get fatter and fatter and fatter, but we cannot as a country run away from it. We can't find ourselves in a Ghana-like situation where we're looking for a bailout, and that ultimately looks like, again, on the broader economic question, the risk we tend to face when we say our receivables are now approaching 90% of our obligations, and so we find that challenge. So this number, the figures won't go away, the responsibility won't go away, the area carriers will get this money at some point, but it's not as useful when you have money due yesterday and you get it a year or two down the road. But so carriers are coming, carriers will continue to come. The Nigerian aviation space is expanding. At the recent FANAC conference organized by the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, they talked about 50 more airlines on stream. So things are, the economy is continuing to grow, numbers are continuing to grow.
Amidst the challenges.
Imagine a society where we didn't have these challenges and the prosperity that would exist in this country. Nigeria is so blessed. We can't understate that by any means. We are so blessed, and that's what makes us resilient. Blessed as human beings and blessed by the gifts of God on the economy and our resources. So that's why we continue to strive in spite of what we call challenges. So
talking about that, in 10 days, a new government would be inaugurated, and it's expected that they would have a new economic direction.
Right.
Do you expect that in maybe a few weeks or months, to be fair to them, of the new administration, that this issue might have been fixed?
Well, let me answer it this way. The history of the incoming president speaks volumes. Lagos was transformed against great strife. If you recall, that was when Lagos was in opposition to the federal government, and it figured out means by which it could grow the state economy. Today, Lagos is the largest and most prosperous economy in Nigeria. So that's a record. So we're hopeful that if this inauguration takes place, this new president comes along, things would improve. And of course, that's the good thing about all the people that run for president, that we have transformative individuals. Each of these three individuals will have made Nigeria better, and that's what we're hopeful ultimately as citizens, that Nigeria can be a better place.
All right, so we're looking at solutions, we're looking at ways forward, we're looking at panacea to this, if I would use the word deadlock with respect to getting out funds that have been trapped. You've given us some, you said there were short-term, mid-term and long-term solution to this challenge. So can you begin to give us, this solution?
Short-term, we can create a maintenance capacity within the Nigerian economy so that all airplanes don't have to. And sometimes government fiat can do that. Government can say to the carriers, and not overnight, within the next 1 year, we do not want to see any airplanes leave this country, so that we can localize maintenance. And so you have 1 year to get yourself set, not overnight. The result of that is that investment will pour into that opportunity, because those that will create that investment know there is a market automatically created. The same way we say we cannot import rice, and the way we say we cannot import cement. And what is the result of that is that we have more rice than we can consume regardless of the pyramid, and we have a lot of cement that is expensive. The only mistake we consistently make with those kinds of policies is that it's then supported by a monopolistic structure. Whereas if we had made it a free market structure, the marketplace will moderate itself and prices will come down, and we'll get cheaper cement and cheaper rice more available. So that kind of policy can say no more outside training, no more maintenance outside of the country. You need to continue buying parts because we have no choice with that regard, but we want to see a mid-range arrangement with parts manufacturers that localize that production within the economy. Nigeria is big enough. And if you project forward, we're supposed to be the second most populous country on earth. So that capacity will continue to grow, even though there are numbers that suggest that we may have the capacity, but we do not have the purchasing power. But if we have the right policies in place where we take and optimize this human capacity, we will definitely raise the gross domestic product and raise the capacity for the marketplace to purchase. But we need good, excellent leadership to take the bold steps required to turn the situation around and make Nigeria a more prosperous country.
So your long term would be that Nigeria will start manufacturing airplanes.
Yes, absolutely. Brazil does, don't they? China is doing that now.
All right, so we'll wait and see. Keep our fingers crossed.
Interesting. We'll see the direction we go with this. Like you mentioned, several potentials in the aviation sector, and hopefully we can, as much as possible, make the most of what happens there and the potentials that lie in this sector. We've been speaking with the President, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association of Nigeria, Dr. Alex Nwuba. I want to especially thank you for coming on the program, and indeed hope that with your expertise you can help also in some way, hopefully maybe get some involvement in policy making and change things even for the best. Right, thank you so much again for coming.
It's my pleasure for being here.
Any final thought?
Thanks for having me on 103.9 FM. It is this kind of dialogue that begins the discussions that are required to make progress in our country, and we'll continue doing that. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much, Dr. Alex Nwuba. That's with that conversation. Of course, it's developing. We'll see what the central bank's response would be, now that the Senate has called for that, and what the president would do. He has 10 days before he leaves. If he's going to take action, it seems like a lot is happening. Lots of moves being made in order to set the record straight. Hopefully this will be one of them. Thank you again for that. Off in the short break. When we get back from the break, we would begin to wrap up on the Law FM Morning Show with a social buzz segment, looking at what's trending on social media, and get you on board talking about that. This is Law FM 103.9. Do not stray breath. We'll be right back.
Every day, there are transactions in the digital space. This is Law FM 103.9. Strap yourself in because we're set up, switched on, and ready to go on Law FM 103.9.
They say that knowledge is power, but here, knowledge of the law and your rights is true power.
So you see that from recent happenings, we've seen that people have started, to fight for their rights.
Strap yourself in. There's only one station that captivates you with the law. Law FM 103.9. First-hand knowledge of the law and your rights, right here on Law FM 103.9.
When you listen to this station, you learn about your rights. You discover the law in ways you never imagined. You know why? Because we broadcast in your interest.
It's a problem that we are all experiencing in the country. Different parts of the country, the same thing is happening. So who do we call on to? Who do we hold responsible?
We impact knowledge.
If the grid is unable to shed the load that it ought to, it could also result in the collapse of the national grid.
Call it what you may, but we are here to stay. The law was never biased, so why should it be now? To every individual, we are Law FM 103.9.
There are no internal electricity boards.
Thanks for staying tuned. It's 51 minutes past 10 o'clock and it's time for Social Buzz. If you go straight to social media right now, precisely Twitter, if you're there, you see several trends. Top on that trend for Lagos right now is police